everyone, Dr. Jen from Wellness in 2 Words here, and I'm sitting on the patio here in fabulous Long Beach, California, at the end of the Metabolic Health Summit 2020, which was an amazing experience. Sorry about the ambient noise, but hey, I'm on the patio. So I wanted to kind of briefly do a video about the what I would say are Keto Commandments. So I kind of came up with the top 10 rules or top 10 commandments of keto. I was kind of run through those real quick. And obviously we'll talk more about these in depth as when I get home and I can kind of spend a little more time doing videos. But, and pardon the hair. I mean, it's, beach hair, don't care, right? So number one, remember your body's default state is to be healthy, not to have disease. Okay, so everything you do when it comes to a ketogenic diet, I really kind of want people to drop the idea of a diet. A diet implies deprivation, it implies like it being temporary, and you really want to embrace more of what I would say is a keto lifestyle. So that's the first thing. You remember, you are doing this to make your body healthy, because your body is not supposed to have disease. That's not its normal state of being. So number one. And remember that your brain, your heart, your liver, your kidneys, they all prefer ketones for fuel. It's kind of a myth that they need a carbohydrate. Number two, eat only when you're hungry. Let me repeat that. That's an important one. Eat only when you're hungry, because we get lots of social cues and lots of influence, and we think it's time to eat when maybe we aren't totally hungry, but we're like, well, I don't know, and all, then this again, and that kind of thing. So managing your food in a way that you eat only when you're hungry means that your body is optimizing what it's using, and that is like a basic rule. So if you wake up in the morning, you're not hungry, don't force yourself to eat breakfast. That's one of the things I've kind of had to shift in my thinking with my kids too, is we're told to give them a healthy breakfast, and I read in one of the keto books, like they quoted Fight Club and saying, Brad Pitt's character said breakfast is a myth sold to you by the cereal people. So there are times my kids say they're not hungry before school, and I feel like I remind them, you're not going to eat again until 11 o'clock, and they're like, nah, we're good. So I've had to kind of shift my thinking around that. Don't base your meals based on a clock. Base your meals on whether or not you're truly hungry, and really have an awareness of that. So that's rule number two, eat only when you're hungry. Number three, a carb is a carb is a carb. It's always a carb. So it doesn't become some other substance in your body. So your body has a specific set of rules and programming of what it does with carbohydrates. And not all carbohydrates are sweet. I mean, we know that. Potatoes, rice, pasta, they're not sweet by nature. But your body will always take carbohydrates and make glucose, i.e. sugar, the endpoint. Okay, so it's going to take every carb and break it down the same way, and it's going to become glucose in your body, no matter if it's rice or a cupcake, period. So a carb is a carb is a carb is a carb. Unless there's fiber. Now that's the only thing I would say. There's insoluble fiber in carbohydrates like vegetables. So a lot of those resistant starches or those fibers, they break down a little bit differently, and you can count that when you look at how to calculate net carbs. You take total carbs minus the insoluble fiber equals your net carbs. The net carbs are the ones you're concerned about if you're like actually going to count carbs. So a carb is a carb is a carb. That's rule number three. Number four, your body is not going to burn fat at rest if it's given carbohydrates. It always goes for the sugar first. So remember, people are like, oh, I can't resist sugar. Well, your body's the same way. It's going to break down the sugar first. And there are reasons for that, because having high levels of sugar or glucose or fructose in the bloodstream is actually toxic. That's why your body secretes insulin to manage it and get rid of it and put it in your cells. So think of sugar as toxic, and your body's going to work at its highest level to try to eliminate it from the bloodstream, because it's really not supposed to be there in super high levels. So just remember that your body is not going to go and burn fat as long as carbohydrates are present. And there's multiple reasons why. I mean, when you release insulin, it blocks fat burning, it promotes fat storage, not the breakdown of fat. So remember, if carbs are present, you will not burn fat. And the goal is to burn fat. That's the whole reason of doing the ketogenic lifestyle. Okay, so you have to deplete your sugar stores before your body will start to break down its own fat. Number 5, fat's where it's at. That's an easy one. So remember, I mean, fat tastes amazing. Like, who doesn't love butter? I mean, we've been brainwashed to think fat is evil. And so in our minds, we're like, ooh, it can't be good for us, so it can't really taste good. You tell me one person who cannot resist dipping something in butter, right? Now, preferably not bread, because that's a carbohydrate. But if it's a super dense high fiber bread and you like slather it in butter, then you've had your, you can have your carb allotment or whatever. Just make sure that it's high, whatever it is high in fiber. But if you gave me asparagus, yeah, there may be a couple little carbs in there or whatever, but if you drench it in butter after you've roasted it on the grill, heck yeah. So fat is where it's at. You want to make fat about 70% of your daily intake. And you want to avoid too much protein, because ultimately protein can be converted into sugar. Your body has a way to do that. So once you've hit your allotment of your required protein to make your muscles, to replenish enzymes and build your body parts, then your body's like, oh, we've got extra protein. What are we gonna do? It's gonna store it as fat. But it does that by turning it into sugar first, and then the sugar becomes fat. That's called gluconeogenesis. So just remember, fat's where it's at least 70% fat is what you want. And then protein, and then carbs. Remember, not all calories are created equal. So a calorie is a calorie is a calorie is a fallacy. That's not a valid rule. You can get twice as many calories in a fat gram if you're counting grams. But get this, your grams of fat, even though it's twice as many calories, it's more dense in terms of calories. So if you're considering those as equal, it's not the same. So when people try to calorie restrict, unless they're eating if they're eating high fat and try to calorie restrict, that's a little more successful than if they try to calorie restrict and they're doing carbohydrate counting. So remember, all calories are not equal. Fat calories are really good though, because of how your body processes them. And so if you try to restrict calories and count calories, but you're trying to do high fat, you're gonna be under your calorie total that you want for the day. I don't personally count calories, I just try to eat fat first. But if you are obsessed with counting calories, it's gonna get you into trouble if you try to do keto, because again, fat calories twice as much as a gram of carb or a gram of protein, because those are 4 grams each versus a fat calorie is 9 grams. Sorry if that's a little confusing. So anyway, just remember, not all calories are equal. Fat calories are good. Carbs, I think I'm on number 7. Number 7, carbs are not essential. Let me repeat that, because that's a really important concept. Carbohydrates are not essential to life. They're not an essential nutrient, okay? Your body can take fat and your body can take protein and turn it into fuel. It can take protein and make sugar out of it if your brain needed sugar through gluconeogenesis. So this whole idea that your brain runs on glucose, well, yeah, it does, but it can use other substances to make that glucose internally. It doesn't need external sources of glucose. That's a really important concept. So carbohydrates are not essential nutrients, but yet they're everywhere, as if we need them. And even nutritionists will counsel a diabetic and say, hey, you need carbohydrates. Well, their body already can't handle or process carbohydrates well, so why would you want to add more to that equation? And a lot of it's because of the medications that they're on. So again, I'm not your doctor, I'm a medical doctor, but the whole concept and the conversation that we have around carbohydrates gets really confusing if you consider them essential to your health. They're not essential to your health. There are essential proteins, there are essential amino acids, there are essential fats. There are no essential carbs. So, and here's a side note too. If you decide to do a ketogenic diet and you're a diabetic, you really, really need to have your doctor or nutritionist helping you, because as you change your ratio of food, fat to carbs, and you restrict carbs and increase fat, your insulin or medication requirements will change. No question, they're gonna change. How they're gonna change, I can't predict that. I'm not your doctor. It's very hard to counsel people on that. What you don't wanna do is have episodes where your blood sugar suddenly drops because you're on a medication to lower it, but you're not taking in the same amount of carbohydrates, because your medication requirements will change and you can get into trouble. So you need to work closely with a nutritionist who understands the ketogenic diet. Work closely with your doctor to try to figure this out, okay? Let's see, that was number 7. So number 8, don't drink your calories. Just don't do it. If you make a smoothie, and even if you have carbohydrates in it, drinking your calories, number 1, isn't as satisfying. It's super fast, because you can slurp down a smoothie in no time flat, versus to sit down and actually eat a meal, even a high-fat meal, takes more time. So don't drink your calories. We all know apple juice is bad for you. You can consume 4 or 5 apples in one sitting in 1 glass of apple juice. And I was that parent. I get it. I gave my kids Capri Sun. I gave them, juice boxes in their lunches, all that stuff. We have changed our philosophy of that. We drink water. We'll drink beverages that are good for us. We don't do any soda. We don't drink any of our calories. But again, even if you're trying to make a keto smoothie, you better make sure it's high fat, and that if it has a sweetener, it's something like stevia that doesn't impact your blood sugar, because that can trigger more hunger. So don't drink your calories. Certainly don't add a bunch of fruit to a smoothie, because a fruit smoothie isn't as healthy as you think. Okay, so it's better to eat your calories than to drink them. Especially if you're adding protein powder, because again, any extra protein is going to get converted to sugar, which then gets converted to fat. All right, number 9, managing your hunger and your cravings is your key to your success. So one way to manage your hunger and your cravings is to eat fat, because your body wants it, and it actually helps you feel full. It's satisfying. If you look at the origins of the word fat, one of the definitions, there are many of them out there, but one of them is the best or the richest part of something. Like, when you give somebody the fat of it, then you're like, that's the reason why. It's actually fulfilling, it's satisfying, your body wants it. So remember, managing your hunger and your cravings is the key. Cravings are brought on often by insulin secretion, because then they try to deal with the carbs, and you get this downward trend where you bottom out a little bit and you get that, oh yeah, now I feel like I need to eat again. So often carbs don't satisfy your hunger cravings, but fat does, because you don't secrete, you secrete minimal insulin when you're eating fat, so you don't get on that roller coaster of hunger cravings. You just stay steady. It's a continual source of fuel. And when you're not actively eating fat, your body's like, well, I know, I need more fat. We need some fuel. So it'll start to break down your own fat. Your muscles will break down your fat. Like, it will look on your own frame for fuel rather than looking for something out there to eat. So it totally helps manage your appetite and your cravings. When you're in a ketogenic diet, you will ultimately eat less. What you will eat will be more nutrient dense, and it'll be hopefully better quality food, but you will overall eat less than you did before, because you will feel satisfied when you get done eating. So, okay. Number 10, increase your fluid and salt intake to maintain a balance. So the whole word carbohydrate means a hydrated, like, carbon group, and that's what carbohydrates are. They're like these carbon building blocks or whatever. It's hard to explain without showing you a picture, and they're all hydrated. They actually hold water. So everybody will tell you, they go on a diet like a ketogenic diet, oh, I lost all this weight. Well, in the first week, a lot of that is going to be water weight. So to avoid the classic keto flu, which I was fortunate I didn't get, because I think I eat a lot of salt and I like a lot of savory stuff. But drink extra fluid and increase your salt intake so that you can hold on to some fluid and you don't end up feeling dehydrated from the fluid loss when your body starts breaking down its own glycogen and all the carbohydrate that's there. Let's see. I think that's it. So top 10 commandments for keto. Remember, your natural state is health and not disease. That's why you're doing this, is to feel better and be healthy. Number 2, eat only when you're hungry. Number 3, a carb is a carb is a carb. It all becomes sugar. Number 4, your body will not burn fat when carbohydrates are present, period. It will not burn fat if carbs are around. Fat's where it's at, 70% or more fat. Not all calories are created equal. So remember, fat calories are more dense, so don't count calories. You'll just get into a tailspin and you won't be satisfied. Carbs are not essential ever. Yeah. Don't drink your calories. Don't drink your calories. Managing your hunger and your cravings is key. Eating fat avoids hunger cravings. And number 10, increase your fluid intake and your salt intake to maintain your balance. And again, if you have any health issues, you really need to talk to your doctor, and tell them you want to work with a nutritionist about a potential ketogenic diet, and look at some online resources, which hopefully I'll try to link you to. So, all right, have a great day, and I'm gonna enjoy this sunshine a little bit longer before I have to fly back to Knoxville. But a lot of the things I learned at this health summit talks about how metabolic disease is really putting Americans' health at risk. It's contributing to the obesity epidemic, the Alzheimer's epidemic, diabetes, cancer, all those things are all, they all have a metabolic basis. And the reason I'm doing this is to help you feel better. I feel amazing. I know I'm healthier. If you're confused, this is a great place to start, okay? Again, I'm not your doctor, I'm a doctor. And as I learn more about this and understand it, I hope that I can impart some of that to you. All right, have a great day. Thanks.